Welcome to another heartfelt chat. I'm Natasha Koo from Intolign, and today's topic is very special. It's about manipulation, and I know it's a really strong word. It's for some of us, it's even a trigger word. But Yakim and I were having a conversation, and we were talking about my past high school experiences, all my friends, my crushes, all that kind of fun stuff. But one thing that popped up when I was explaining all these stories is how manipulative I was in the past, especially when it came to people who I thought were like pushovers, people who I could influence, people who I could like take charge of and kind of change their mind or influence their actions. I realized that when I was younger, very unconsciously, when I was in high school, maybe even middle school, I was manipulative, and that's kind of scary considering how much I dislike manipulation myself. I don't like to be manipulated. I don't like for others to even, convince me or try to make me do anything that, someone else wants me to, but I don't. I don't want to be, in the project of someone else's agenda. So that is definitely quite uncomfortable for me to admit and to kind of feel into myself. So I want to talk about manipulation. It's a strong word, but I feel like it needs to be talked about because it is so normal, it is so socially accepted in this world. And I think that's a total issue. So if I think back to high school and the forms of the manipulation that I did, some of it was, say I invited a friend to some party or some event or some hangout that we're doing, and say that person says, oh no, I can't come. Then back then, I remember instances where I would just get really riled up and really emotionally disturbed by that answer because it's not the answer that I want. So then I would get really emotional in order to try to get to that person. So I was trying to manipulate them to changing their minds because I was so angry or so annoyed or so disappointed. So I was emotionally blackmailing my friends to do what I wanted them to do, all through my emotional response. And I think that's just crazy. That's so not nice, and that's so not genuine. So that's a form of manipulation that I did. I remember that I did in high school. Now, if you look at the fact that manipulation is so socially accepted, another thing that I've definitely heard is overhearing two grown women, actually in their 40s, 50s, talking about relationships. And now these two women don't have the best romantic relationships. Let's just put it that way. And they were talking about how there was a neighbor next door, and one thing that this woman learned from her next door neighbor is how she kept complimenting her husband. So when he was barbecuing, just making burgers, she would be like, oh, good job, honey, and like, oh, thanks for mowing the lawn, it looks great, and all that stuff. And apparently, this woman learned from her neighbor that it's really, really good to compliment their husband, what they're doing, especially when they get things done around the house for you, and especially to comment and compliment on things that don't even matter much. So like, for example, like the burger, it doesn't take much, let's say, skills to just barbecue it up, heat it up. It's already made, let's say, but still you compliment them, because if you do, then they'll get really happy from your compliment, and then in turn they'll do more of that kind of stuff for you. And when I heard that, and apparently this woman shared it with another woman, and apparently that lady said, oh my goodness, it totally worked. I started complimenting my boyfriend more, and he's better now. He's doing all the things that I want him to, and with more enthusiasm. And I just wanted to facepalm myself and go, oh my goodness, what do these women think this is? Like, yes, it was a tip, but it has been totally twisted, because instead of coming from a beautiful, good place of your heart and going, oh, thank you so much for doing that, because I actually appreciate the fact that you're making lunch for me, or I actually appreciate the fact that you're taking care of our home, it's just the intention is just to say something in a certain way in order to get the type of behavior out of the other person, and that is just pure manipulation. So I thought that was insane that, this could be heard, and that this form of manipulation can be learned, and people think that it's for the betterment of their relationship, when it's really not, because deep down you're still not appreciating your partner, you're still not appreciating what they're doing, and all you're doing is learning some behavior or some kind of tip. You're using it to get things your way, and I think that's crazy. And I'm not even going to mention the more obvious ways in which people manipulate each other and cheat on each other and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the subliminal, like really the connections and the people to people interactions and our relationships and the type of manipulation that we do like all the time to each other. And another thing I think that's really rampant and is socially accepted is passive aggressiveness, right? And I sometimes do that, but I know when people do that to me, I get super pissed off because I can feel how they're annoyed at something, but they're not courageous enough, willing to bring up the actual issue. And what happens is you get these jabs and you get these rude comments, but they get away with it because that's what passive aggressive activity is like. It's so slight that you totally feel the negative intent, but in a social setting it's still accepted because if you take it literally, there's nothing wrong with it, with what they're saying, but it's very emotionally loaded. So I think passive aggressiveness, that's something I know I gotta work on because it comes up from time to time. But I know that also sometimes when you get really close to a friend or someone and they have that kind of pattern, it will come up, and that is absolutely manipulation too, because you're trying to use that tone of voice, you're trying to use that negative energy, you're trying to use those jabs to get back at someone. And I'll make another video about that actually, but I just wanted to list out all these little examples that sometimes I do myself. I realized that I did when I was in high school, and these conversations of these relationship tips of complimenting your partner so that they do what you want them to, I think it's just quite outrageous. It's not nice. And if we're here to look for true genuine connection with our loved ones, with our friends, like why do we want to learn these tips that actually make us manipulate one another? I think that really doesn't make sense. And I guess what it comes down to is that we're so scared of feeling more deeply or speaking up our truth, like in a deeper way, accessing ourselves in a deeper way, exposing ourselves in a deeper way, that we rather just use such a tip, like do such a thing, than to actually put ourselves out there vulnerably and openly to another person. And I think it all has to do with how powerless we feel in relationships and also within ourselves, and to the extent that we need to rely on these things to keep changing our external circumstances. So yeah, that's why I think it's really important to talk about manipulation, how normal it is and how it's really not okay. And having done it myself in the past, I realized just how little self-awareness I had at the time. I didn't even know I was doing it. That's the thing, like when you're really not self-aware, and when you're not self-aware, then you're just selfish because you're hurting other people, you're doing things to other people, you're manipulating other people, you don't even realize it, and that sucks. So I hope that this video has shed a bit of light on manipulation, whether you're the recipient of it or you're someone who, well, sometimes actually do it yourself. Well, let's become a bit more self-aware and let's act in a way where we don't accept this as a thing that's socially acceptable, and we speak up to others who are doing it. We point it out, we say it's not okay. And when you find yourself going into that spiral and you doing it yourself, then let's take that as a sign to be more self-reflective and self-aware so that we can stop hurting other people by trying to change them and change our circumstances in that way. So let me know in the comments if this brings up certain instances where you may have manipulated others, or you have been manipulated, and how you would like to approach that kind of situation now. So thanks for joining me today. If this video has been really helpful for you, please share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and of course hit that little bell button to get the notification next time I'm here. So see you next week. Bye!